Lalita Sahasranama, 1000 names of the Devi. Om Shri Lalita Maha Tripura Sundari Swarupa Shri Meenakshi Parameshwari Paradevata Ambikayai Namadhyanam. May we meditate on the Divine, whose body has the red hue of vermilion, who has 3 eyes, who wears a beautiful crown studded with rubies, who is adorned with a crescent moon, whose face sports a beautiful smile indicating compassion, who has beautiful limbs, whose hands hold a jewel-studded golden vessel filled with nectar, and in the other a red lotus flower. I meditate on the great Empress. She is red in color and her eyes are full of compassion. She holds the noose, the gourd, the bow, and the flowery arrow in her hands. She is surrounded on all sides by powers such as anima for race, and she is the self within me. The divine goddess is to be meditated upon as seated in the lotus with petal eyes. She is golden hued and has lotus flowers in her hands. She dispels the fears of devotees who bow before her. She is the embodiment of peace, knowledge, vidya, is praised by gods and grants every kind of wealth wished for. I meditate on the Mother, whose eyes are smiling, who holds the arrow, bow, noose, and gourd in her hands. She is glittering with red garlands and ornaments. She is painted with kunkuma on her forehead and is red and tender like the japa flower. Atha Shri Lalita Sahasranama Stotram. Om Aim Hrim Shreem. Om Aim Hrim Shreem. Shri Mata, she who is the auspicious mother. Shri Maharagni, she who is the Empress of the universe. Shrimad Simhasaneshwari, she who is the Queen of the most glorious throne. Hridagnikunda Sambhuta, she who was born in the fire pit of pure consciousness. Devakarya Samudhyata, she who is intent on fulfilling the wishes of the gods. Udyatbhanu Sahasrabha, she who has the radiance of 1,000 rising suns. Chaturbahu Samanvita, she who is four-armed. Ragaswarupa Pashadhya, she who is holding the rope of love in her hand. Krodhakaran Kushojvala, she who shines bearing the gourd of anger. Manurupekshu Kodanda, she who holds in her hand a sugarcane bow that represents the mind. Panchatanmatra Sayaka, she who holds the 5 subtle elements as arrows. Nijaruna Prabhapura Majjat Brahmanda Mandala, she who immerses the entire universe in the red effulgence of her form. Champaka Ashoka Punnaga Saugandhika Lasat Kacha, she whose hair has been adorned with flowers like Champaka, Ashoka, Punnaga and Saugandhika. Kuruvinda Manishreni Kanatkotira Mandita, she who is resplendent with a crown adorned with rows of Kuruvinda gems. Ashtami Chandra Vipraja Dalikasthala Shobita, She whose forehead shines like the crescent moon of the 8th night of the lunar half-month. Mukhachandra Kalankabha Mriganabhi Visheshaka. She who wears a musk mark on her forehead which shines like a spot on the moon. Vadanasmara Mangalya Grihatorana Chillika. She whose eyebrows shine like the archways leading to the house of Kama, god of love, which her face resembles. Vaktra Lakshmi Parivaha Chalan Meenabha Lochana. She whose eyes possess the luster of the fish that moves about in the stream of beauty flowing from her face. Navachampaka Pushpabha Nasadanda Virajita. She who is resplendent with a nose that has the beauty of a newly blossoming champaka flower. Tarakanti Tiraskari Nasabharana Bhasura. She who shines with a nose ornament that excels the luster of a star. Kadamba Manjari Klupta Karnapura Manohara. She who is captivating, wearing bunches of Kadamba flowers as ear ornaments. Tatanka Yugali Bhuta Tapanodupa Mandala. She who wears the sun and the moon as a pair of large earrings. Padmaraga Shiladarsha Paribhavi Kapolabuhu. She whose cheeks excel mirrors made of rubies in their beauty. Navavidruma Bimba Shri Nyakari Radanachada. She whose lips excel freshly cut coral and bimba fruit in their reflective splendor. Shuddha Vidyankurakara Dvijapankti Dvayojvala. She who has radiant teeth which resemble the buds of pure knowledge. Karpura Vitika Moda Samakarshit Digantara. She who is enjoying a camphor-laden betel roll, the fragrance of which is attracting people from all directions. Nijasallapa Madhurya Vinirbhatsita Kachapi. She who excels even the Veena of Saraswati in the sweetness of her speech. Bandasmita Prabhapura Majjat Kamesha Manasa. She who submerges even the mind of Kamesha, Lord Shiva, in the radiance of her smile. Anakalita Sadrishya Chivuka Shri Virajita. She whose chin cannot be compared to anything. It is beyond comparison because of its unparalleled beauty. Kamesha Baddha Mangalya Sutra Shobhita Kandhara. She whose neck is adorned with the marriage thread tied by Kamesha. Kanakangada Keyura Kamaniya Bhujanvita. She whose arms are beautifully adorned with golden armlets. Ratna Greveya Chintaka Lola Mukta Falanvita. She whose neck is resplendent with a gem-studded necklace with a locket made of pearl. Kameshwara Prema Ratna Mani Pratipanasthani. She who gives her breast to Kameshwara in return for the gem of love he bestows on her. Nabhyala Vala Romali Lata Phala Kuchadvai. She whose breasts are the fruits on the creeper of the fine hairline that starts in the depth of her navel and spreads upwards. Laksharoma Latadharata Samunneya Madhyama. She who has a waist, the existence of which can only be inferred by the fact that the creeper of her hairline springs from it. Sthanabhara Dalanmadhya Pattabandha Valitraya. She whose abdomen has 3 folds which form a belt to support her waist from breaking under the weight of her breasts. Arunaruna Kausumba Vastrabhasvat Katitati. She whose hips are adorned with a garment as red as the rising sun, which is dyed with an extract from safflower, Kusumba blossoms. Ratna Kinkini Karamya Rashanadama Bhushita. She who is adorned with a girdle which is decorated with many gem-studded bells. Kamesha Gyata Saubhagya Mardavoru Dayanvita. The beauty and softness of whose thighs are known only to Kamesha, her husband. Manikya Makutakara Janudvaya Virajita. She whose knees are like crowns shaped from the precious red jewel Manikya, a kind of ruby. Indragopa Parikshipta Smaratunabha Jamghika. She whose calves gleam like the jewel-covered quiver of the god of love. Guda Gulfa. She whose ankles are hidden. Kurma Prishtha Jaishnu Prapadanvita. She whose feet have arches that rival the back of a tortoise in smoothness and beauty. Nakhadidhi Sanchanna Namajjana Tamoguna. She whose toenails give out such a radiance that all the darkness of ignorance is dispelled completely from those devotees who prostrate at her lotus feet. Padadvaya Prabhajala Parakrita Saroruha. She whose feet defeat lotus flowers in radiance. Shinjana Manimanjira Mandita Shri Padambuja. She whose auspicious lotus feet are adorned with gem-studded golden anklets that tinkle sweetly. Marali Mandagamana. She whose gait is as slow and gentle as that of a swan. Mahalavanya Shevadihi. She who is the treasure house of beauty. Sarvaruna. She who is entirely red in complexion. Anavadyangi. She whose body is worthy of worship. Sarvabharana Bhushita. She who is resplendent with all types of ornaments. Shiva Kameshwarankastha. She who sits in the lap of Shiva, who is the conqueror of desire. Shiva. She who bestows all that is auspicious. Swadhina Vallabha. She who keeps her husband always under her control. Sumeru Madhya Shringastha. She who sits on the middle peak of Mount Sumeru. Shriman Nagaranayika. She who is the mistress of the most auspicious or prosperous. Chintamani Grihanthastha. She who resides in a house built of Chintamani. Pancha Brahmasana Sthita. She who sits on a seat made of 5 Brahmas. Mahapadmatavi Sanstha. She who resides in the great lotus forest. Kadamba Vanavasini. She who resides in the Kadamba forest. Sudha Sagara Madhyastha. She who resides in the center of the ocean of nectar. Kamakshi. She whose eyes awaken desire, or she who has beautiful eyes. Kamadaini. She who grants all wishes. Devarshi Gana Sanghata Stuyamanatma Vaibhava. She whose might is the subject of praise by multitudes of gods and sages. Bhandasura Vadodhyukta Shakti Sena Samanvita. She who is endowed with an army of Shaktis intent on slaying Bhandasura. Sampatkari Samarudha Sindhura Vrajasevita. She who is attended by a herd of elephants ably commanded by Sampatkari. Ashwarudhadi Sthitashva Koti Koti Bhiravrita. She who is surrounded by a cavalry of several million horses which are under the command of the Shakti Ashwarudha. Chakra Raja Ratharudha Sarvayudha Parishkrita. She who shines in her chariot Chakra Raja, equipped with all kinds of weapons. Geya Chakra Ratharudha Mantrini Parisevita. She who is served by the Shakti named Mantrini, who rides the chariot known as Geya Chakra. Kiri Chakra Ratharudha Dandhanada Puraskruta. She who is escorted by the Shakti known as Dandanatha seated in the Kiri Chakra chariot. Jwala Malini Kakshipta Vahni Prakara Madhyaga. She who has taken position at the center of the fortress of fire created by the goddess Jwala Malini. Bhanda Sainya Vadhodhyukta Shakti Vikrama Harshita. She who rejoices at the valor of the Shaktis who are intent on destroying the forces of Bhandasura. Nitya Parakrama Topa Nirishana Samutsuka. She who delights in seeing the might and the pride of her Nitya deities. Bhandaputra Vadhodhyukta Bala Vikrama Nandita. She who delights in seeing the valor of the goddess Bala, who is intent on killing the sons of Bhanda. Mantrinyamba Virachita Vishanga Vadhatoshita. She who rejoices at the destruction in battle of demon Vishanga by the Mantrini Shakti. Vishukra Prana Harana Varahi Virya Nandita. She who is pleased with the prowess of Varahi, who took the life of Vishukra. Kameshwara Mukhaloka Kalpita Shri Ganeshwara. She who gives rise to Ganesha by a glance at the face of Kameshwara. Mahaganesha Nirbhinna Vigna Yantra Praharshita. She who rejoices when Ganesha shatters all obstacles. Bhanda Surendra Nirmukta Shastra Pratyastra Varshini. She who showers counter weapons to each weapon fired at her by Bhandasura. Karanguli Nakhotpanna Narayana Dashakritihi. She who created from her fingernails all 10 incarnations of Narayana, that is Vishnu. Mahapashupatastragni Nirdagdhasura Sainika. She burned the armies of the demons in the fire of the missile Mahapashupata. Kameshwarastra Nirdagdha Sabhandasura Shunyaka. She who burnt and destroyed Bhandasura and his capital Shunyaka with the Kameshwara missile. Brahmopindra Mahendradi Deva Sansthuta Vaibhava. She whose many powers are extolled by Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva and other gods. Haranetragne Sandagdha Kama Sanjeeva Naushadihi. She who became the life-giving medicine for Kamadeva, god of love, who had been burned to ashes by the fire from Shiva's third eye. Srimad Vagbhava Kutaika Swarupa Mukha Pankaja. She whose lotus face is the auspicious Vagbhava Kuta, that is, a group of syllables of the Panchadashakshari mantra. Kanthadaha Katiparyanta Madhyakuta Swarupini. She who from her neck to her waist is of the form of the Madhyakuta, the middle 6 syllables of the Panchadashakshari mantra. Shakti Kutaika Tapanna Katyadho Bhagadharini. She whose form below the waist is the Shakti Kuta, the last 4 syllables of the Panchadashakshari mantra. Moola Mantratmika. She who is the embodiment of the Moola mantra, that is, the Panchadashakshari mantra. Moola Kutatraya Kalebara. She whose subtle body is made of the 3 parts of the Panchadashakshari mantra. Kulamritaika Rasika. She who is especially fond of the nectar known as Kula. Kula Sanketa Palini. She who protects the code of rituals of the path of yoga known as Kula. Kulangana. She who is well born from a good family. Kulantasta. She who resides in the Kula Vidya. Kaulini. She who belongs to the Kula. Kula Yogini. She who is the deity in the Kulas. Akula. She who is beyond Kula, that is, measurable dimensionality. Samayantasta. She who resides inside Samaya. Samayachara Tatpara. She who is attached to the Samaya form of worship. Mooladharaika Nilaya. She whose principal abode is the Mooladhara. Brahma Granthi Vibedini. She who breaks through the knot of Brahma. Manipuranta Rudita. She who emerges in the Manipura Chakra. Vishnu Granthi Vibhedini. She who breaks through the knot of Maya of Vishnu. Then the devotee perceives the unreality of his individuality as body, mind, present incarnation. He loses the consciousness of the limited I-ness. Agnya Chakranta Ralastha. She who resides at the center of the Agnya Chakra. Rudra Grandhi Vibedini. She who breaks through the knot of Shiva. Sahasranama Rudha. She who ascends to the 1000-petal lotus. Sudha Sarabhivarshini. She who pours out streams of ambrosia. Tatillata Samaruchi. She who is as beautiful as a flash of lightning. Shat Chakropari Sansthita. She who resides above the 6 chakras. Mahashaktihi. She who is greatly attached to the festive union of Shiva and Shakti. Kundalini. She who has the form of a coil. Bisatantu Taniyasi. She who is fine and delicate as the fiber of the lotus. Bhavani. She who is the wife of Bhava, that is Shiva. Bhavana Gamya, she who is unattainable through imagination or thought. Bhavaranya Kutharika, she who is like an axe to clear the jungle of samsara. Bhadrapriya, she who is fond of all auspicious things, who gives all auspicious things. Bhadramurtihi, she who is the embodiment of auspiciousness and benevolence. Bhakta Saubhagyadaini, she who confers prosperity on her devotees. Bhakti Priya, she who is fond of devotion and pleased by devotion. Bhakti Gamya, she who is attained only through devotion. Bhakti Vashya, she who is to be won over by devotion. Bhayapaha, she who dispels fear. Shambhavi, she who is the wife of Shambhu, that is Shiva. Sharada Radhya, she who is worshipped by Sharada, that is Saraswati, the goddess of speech. Sharvani, she who is the wife of Sharva, that is Shiva. Sharmadaini, she who confers happiness. Shankari, she who gives happiness. Shrikari, she who bestows riches in abundance. Sadhvi, she who is chaste. Sharad Chandra Nibhanana, she whose face shines like a full moon in the clear autumn sky. Shatodari, she who is slender-waisted. Shantimati, she who is peaceful. Niradhara, she who is without dependence, unsupported. Niranjana, she who stays unattached, bound to nothing, unstained by any limitations whatsoever. Nirlepa, she who is untouched by various karmas and dualism. Nirmala, she who is free from all impurities. Nitya, she who is eternal. Nirakara, she who is without form. Nirakula, she who is without agitation, unruffled. Nirguna, she who is attributeless, beyond the three gunas and the three nadis. She is consciousness devoid of the qualities and attributes of the mind. Nishkala, she who is indivisible, complete. Shanta, she who is tranquil. Nishkama, she who has nothing to desire as she has everything. Nirupaplava, she who is indestructible. Nityamukta, she who is ever free from worldly bonds and her devotees are ever free. Nirvikara, she who is changeless but is the unchanging basis of all changes. Nishprapancha, she who is not of this universe. Nirashraya, she who has no basis as she is everything. Nitya Shuddha, she who is eternally pure. Nitya Buddha, she who is ever wise. Niravadya, she who is blameless, or she who is praiseworthy. Nirantara, she who is all-pervading, undifferentiated. Nishkarana, she who is causeless, the cause of all causes. Nishkalanka, she who is faultless brilliance. Nirupadihi, she who is alone, without Maya, the basis of plurality. Nirishwara, she who has no superior or protector, supreme. Niraga, she who is unattached. Ragamathani, she who destroys desires, passions. Nirmada, she who is without pride. Madanashini, she who destroys pride. Nischinta, she who has no anxiety in anything. Nirahankara, she who is without egoism, she who is without the concept of I and mine. Nirmoha, she who is free from delusion, such as mistaking unreal for real. Mohanashini, she who destroys delusion in her devotees. Nirmama, she who has no self-interest in anything. Mamata Hantri, she who destroys the sense of ownership. Nishpapa, she who is beyond sin. Papanashini, she who destroys all the sins of her devotees. Nishkrodha, she who is without anger. Krodha Shamani, she who destroys anger in her devotees. Nirlobha, she who is without greed. Lobhanashini, she who destroys greed in her devotees. Nishanshaya, she who is without doubts. Sanshayagni, she who kills all doubts. Nirbhava, she who is without origin, unborn. Bhavanashini, she who destroys the sorrow of samsara, that is, the cycle of birth and death. Nirvikalpa, she who is beyond all doubts. Nirabadha, she who is not disturbed by anything. Nirbheda, she who is beyond of all sense of difference. Bhedanashini, she who removes from her devotees all sense of differences born of vasanas. Nirnasha, she who is imperishable. Mrityu Mathani, she who destroys death. Nishkriya, she who is beyond all actions, not involved in any action. Nishparigraha, she who does not take anything since she needs nothing. As she is the Purna Kama, devotees also become Nishparigraha. Nisthula, she who is incomparable, unequaled. Neela Chikura, she who has shining black hair. Nirapaya, she who is beyond dangers. Niratyaya, she who cannot be crossed or transgressed. Durlabha, she who is won only with much difficulty. Durgama, she who is approachable only with extreme effort. Durga, she who is the goddess Durga. Dukkha Hantri, she who is the destroyer of sorrow. Sukha Prada, she who is the giver of happiness. Dushta Dura, she who is unapproachable by sinners. Durachara Shamani, she who stops evil customs. Dosha Varjita, she who is free from all faults. Sarvagnya, she who is omniscient. Sandra Karuna, she who is intensely compassionate to her devotees. Samanadika Varjita, she who has neither equal nor superior. Sarva Shaktimayi, she who has all the divine powers, she who is omnipotent. Sarva Mangala, she who is the source of all that is auspicious. Sadgati Prada, she who leads into the right path. Sarveshwari, she who rules over all living and non-living things. Sarvamayi, she who pervades every living and non-living thing. Sarva Mantra Swarupini, she who is the essence of all the mantras. Sarva Yantratmika, she who is the soul of all yantras. Sarva Tantra Rupa, she who is the soul, embodiment of all tantras. Manonmani, she who is Shiva's Shakti. Maheshwari, she who is the wife of Maheshwara. Mahadevi, she who has the immeasurable body. Mahalakshmi, she who is the great goddess Lakshmi. Mruda Priya, she who is the beloved of Mruda, that is Shiva. Maharupa, she who has a great form. Mahapujya, she who is worshipped by the highest, that is the Trimurtis, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Mahapatakanaashini, she who destroys even the greatest of sins. Mahamaya, she who is the supreme creator of illusion and confusion even to the greatest of gods. Mahasattva, she who possesses great sattva. Mahashaktihi, she who has great power. Maharatihi, she who is boundless delight. Mahabhoga, she who has immense wealth. Maheshwarya, she who has supreme sovereignty. Mahavirya, she who is supreme in valor. Mahabala, she who is supreme in might. Mahabuddhihi, she who is supreme in intelligence. Mahasiddhihi, she who is endowed with the highest attainments. Mahayogeshwareshwari, she who is the object of worship even by the greatest of yogis. Mahatantra, she who is worshipped by the greatest tantras such as Kularnava and Jnanarnava. Mahamantra, she who is the greatest mantra. Mahayantra, she who is in the form of the great yantras. Mahasana, she who is seated on great seats. Mahayaga Kramaradhya, she who is worshipped by the ritual of Mahayaga. Mahabhairava Pujita, she who is worshipped even by Mahabhairava, that is Shiva. Maheshwara Mahakalpa Mahatandava Sakshini, she who is the witness of the great dance of Maheshwara, Shiva, at the end of the great cycle of creation. Mahakamesha Mahishi, she who is the great queen of Mahakameshwara, Shiva. Mahatripura Sundari, she who is the great Tripura Sundari. Chatushashti Upacharadhya, she who is adorned in 64 ceremonies. Chatushashti Kalamayi, she who embodies the 64 fine arts. Mahachatushashti Koti Yogini Ganasevata, she who is attended, served by 64 crores of bands of yoginis. Manuvidya, she who is the embodiment of Manuvidya. Chandravidya, she who is the embodiment of Chandravidya. Chandramandala Madhyaga, she who resides in the center of Chandramandala, the moon's disk. Charu Rupa, she who has a beauty that does not wax or wane. Charuhasa, she who has a beautiful smile. Charu Chandra Kaladhara, she who bears the beautiful crescent moon that does not wax or wane. Charachara Jagannatha, she who is the ruler of the animate and inanimate worlds. Chakraraja Niketana, she who abides in the Shri Chakra. Parvati, she who is the daughter of the mountain, Mount Himavat or Himalaya. Padmanayana, she who has eyes that are long and beautiful like the petals of the lotus flower. Padmaraga Samaprabha, she who has a resplendent red complexion like the ruby. Panchapretasana Sina, she who sits on the seat formed by the 5 corpses. Panchabrahma Swarupini, she whose form is composed of the 5 Brahmas. Chinmayi, she who is consciousness itself. Paramananda, she who is supreme bliss. Vijnana Ghanarupini, she who is the embodiment of all-pervading solid intelligence. Dhyana Dhyatru Dheya Rupa, she who shines as meditation, meditator, and the object of meditation. Dharma Adharma Vivarjita, she who is devoid of, who transcends both virtue and vice. Vishwarupa, she who has the whole universe as her form. Jagarini, she who is in the waking state, or she who assumes the form of the Jiva who is in the waking state. Swapanti, she who is in the dream state, or she who assumes the form of the Jiva in the dream state. Taijasatmika, she who is the soul of Taijasa, Jiva in the dream state, proud of its subtle body. Supta, she who is in the deep sleep state or assumes the form of the Jiva experiencing deep sleep. Prajnatmika, she who is not separate from Prajna, deep sleep. Turiya, she who is in the state of Turiya, that is, 4th state in which the ultimate realization of Atma is obtained. Sarvavastha Vivarjita, she who transcends all states. Shrishti Kartri, she who is the creator. Brahma Rupa, she who is in the form of Brahma. Goptri, she who protects. Govinda Rupini, she who has assumed the form of Govinda, Vishnu, for the preservation of the universe. Samharini, she who is the destroyer of the universe. Rudra Rupa, she who has assumed the form of Rudra, Shiva, for the dissolution of the universe. Tirodhanakari, she who causes the disappearance of all things. Ishwari, she who protects and rules everything. Sadashiva, one who always bestows auspiciousness. Anugrahada, she who confers blessings. Panchakritya Parayana, she who is devoted to the 5 functions of creation, preservation, destruction, annihilation and reappearance. Bhanu Mandala Madhyastha, she who abides in the center of the sun's disk. Bhairavi, she who is the wife of Bhairava, Shiva. Bhagamalini, she who wears a garland made of the 6 excellences of auspiciousness, supremacy, fame, valor, detachment and knowledge. Padmasana, she who is seated in the lotus flower. Bhagavati, she who protects those who worship her. Padmanabha Sahodari, she who is Vishnu's sister. Unmesha Nimishotpanna Vipanna Bhuvanavali, she who causes a series of worlds to arise and disappear with the opening and closing of her eyes. Sahasra Shirsha Vadana, she who has 1,000 heads and faces. Sahasrakshi, she who has 1,000 eyes. Sahasrapat, she who has 1,000 feet. Abrahma Kita Janani, she who is the mother of everything from Brahma to the lowliest insect. Varnashrama Vidhayini, she who established the order of the social division in life. Nijagnya Rupa Nigama, she whose commands take the form of the Vedas. Punya Punya Phalaprada, she who dispenses the fruits of both good and evil actions. Shruti Simanta Sindhuri Kruta Padabja Dhulika, she is the one, the dust from whose feet forms the vermilion marks at the parting line of the hair of the Shruti Devatas, Vedas personified as goddesses. Sakalagama Sandoha Shukti Samputa Mauktika, she who is the pearl enclosed in the shell made of all the scriptures. Purushartha Pradha, she who grants the 4-fold objects of human life. Purna, she who is always whole without growth or decay. Bhogini, she who is the enjoyer. Bhuvaneshwari, she who is the ruler of the universe. Ambika, she who is the mother of the universe. Anadi Nidhana, she who has neither beginning or end. Hari Brahmendra Sevita, she who is attended by Brahma, Vishnu and Indra. Narayani, she who is the female counterpart of Narayana. Nadarupa, she who is the form of sound. Namarupa Vivarjita, she who has no name or form. Hrimkari, she who is in the form of syllable Hrim. Hrimati, she who is endowed with modesty. Hridaya, she who abides in the heart. Heyopadeya Varjita, she who has nothing to reject or accept. Raja Rajarchita, she who is worshipped by the King of Kings. Ragni, she who is the Queen of Shiva, the Lord of all kings. Ramya, she who gives delight, she who is lovely. Rajiva Lochana, she whose eyes are like Rajiva, that is lotus. Ranjani, she who delights the mind. Ramani, she who gives joy. Rasya, she who is to be enjoyed, she who enjoys. Ranat Kinkini Mekhala, she who wears a girdle of tinkling bells. Rama, she who has become Lakshmi and Saraswati. Rakendu Vadana, she who has a delightful face like the full moon. Rati Rupa, she who is in the form of Rati, wife of Kama. Rati Priya, she who is fond of Rati, the wife of Kama. Rakshakari, she who is the protector. Rakshasagni, she who is the slayer of the entire race of demons. Rama, she who gives delight. Ramana Lampata, she who is devoted to the Lord of her heart, Lord Shiva. Kamya, she who is to be desired. Kamakala Rupa, she who is in the form of Kamakala. Kadamba Kusuma Priya, she who is especially fond of Kadamba flowers. Kalyani, she who bestows auspiciousness. Jagati Kanda, she who is the root of the whole world. Karuna Rasa Sagara, she who is the ocean of compassion. Kalavati, she who is the embodiment of all arts. Kalalapa, she who speaks musically and sweetly. Kanta, she who is beautiful. Kadambari Priya, she who is fond of mead. Varada, she who grants boons generously. Vamanayana, she who has beautiful eyes. Varuni Mada Vihvala, she who is intoxicated by Varuni, ambrosial drink. Vishwadikha, she who transcends the universe. Veda Vedya, she who is known through the Vedas. Vindhyachala Nivasini, she who resides in the Vindhya mountains. Vidhatri, she who creates and sustains this universe. Veda Janani, she who is the mother of the Vedas. Vishnu Maya, she who is the illusory power of Vishnu. Vilasini, she who is playful. Kshetra Swarupa, she whose body is matter. Kshetreshi, she who is the wife of Kshetresha, that is Shiva. Kshetra Kshetrajna Palini, she who is the protector of matter and the knower of matter, therefore the protector of body and soul. Kshaya Vriddhi Vinirmukha, she who is free from growth and decay. Kshetrapala Samarchita, she who is worshipped by Kshetrapala, that is Shiva in infant form. Vijaya, she who is ever victorious. Vimala, she who is without a trace of impurity. Vandya, she who is adorable, worthy of worship. Vandaru Janavatsala, she who is full of motherly love for those who worship her. Vaghvadini, she who speaks. Vamakeshi, she who has beautiful hair. Vahni Mandala Vasini, she who resides in the disk of fire. Bhakti Matkalpa Latika, she who is the Kalpa, wish-granting creeper to her devotees. Pashupasha Vimochini, she who releases the ignorant from bondage. Samhrita Shesha Pashanda, she who destroys all heretics. Sadachara Pravartika, she who is immersed in and inspires others to follow right conduct. Tapatrayagni Santapta Samahladana Chandrika, she who is the moonlight that gives joy to those burned by the triple fire of misery. Taruni, she who is ever young. Tapasa Radhya, she who is worshipped by ascetics. Tanu Madhya, she who is slender-waisted. Tamopaha, she who removes the ignorance born of tamas. Chit, she who is in the form of pure intelligence. Tatpada Lakshyardha, she who is the embodiment of truth, which is indicated by the word Tat. Chideka Rasarupini, she who is of the nature of pure intelligence, she who is the cause of knowledge. Swatmananda Lavibhuta Brahmadhyananda Santihi, she who makes the bliss of Brahma and others insignificant compared to her own bliss. Para, she who is Para, the first level where the sound begins. Pratyak Chitirupa, she who is of the nature of unmanifested consciousness or of unmanifested Brahman. Pashyanti, she who is Pashyanti, the second level of sound after Para in the Swadhisthana Chakra. Paradevata, she who is the supreme deity, Parashakti. Madhyama, she who is Madhyama, the third level of sound after Pashyanti. Vaikhari Rupa, she who is in the form of Vaikhari, that is, sound in the manifested audible form. Bhakta Manasa Hansika, she who is the swan in the minds of her devotees. Kameshwara Prananadi, she who is the very life of Kameshwara, her consort. Kritagnya, she who knows all of our actions as they occur. Kama Pujita, she who is worshipped by Kama. Shringara Rasa Sampurna, she who is filled with the essence of love. Jaya, she who is victorious always and everywhere. Jalandhara Sthita, she who resides in the Jalandhara Pitha, in the throat region. Odyana Pitha Nilaya, she whose abode is the center known as Odyana in the Agnya Chakra. Bindu Mandala Vasini, she who resides in the Bindu Mandala, that is Shri Chakra. Rahoyaga Kramaradhya, she who is worshipped in secret through sacrificial rites. Rahastarpana Tarpita, she who is to be gratified by the secret rites of worship. Sadhyaha Prasadini, she who bestows her grace immediately. Vishwasakshini, she who is witness to the whole universe. Sakshi Varjita, she who has no other witness. Shadanga Devata Yukta, she who is accompanied by the deities of the 6 Angas, that is heart, head, hair, eyes, armor and weapons. Shatgunya Paripurita, she who is fully endowed with the 6 good qualities, that is prosperity, valor, dispassion, fame, wealth and wisdom. Nitya Klinna, she who is ever compassionate. Nirupama, she who is incomparable. Nirvana Sukhadaini, she who confers the bliss of liberation. Nitya Shodashika Rupa, she who is in the form of the 16 daily deities, that is Kameshwari, Bhagamalini, Nityaklinna, Bherunda, Vahnivasini, Mahavajreshwari, Shivaduti, Tvarita, Kulasundari, Nitya, Neelapatakini, Vijaya, Sarvamangala, Jwala Malini, Chitra and Tripura Sundari. Shri Kantardha Sharirini, she who possesses half of the body of Shri Kantha, Shiva, she who is in the form of Ardhanarishwara. Prabhavati, she who is effulgent. Prabharupa, she who is effulgence. Prasiddha, she who is celebrated. Parameshwari, she who is the supreme sovereign. Moola Prakriti, she who is the first cause of the entire universe. Avyakta, she who is unmanifested. Vyakta Swarupini, she who is in the manifested and unmanifested forms. Vyapini, she who is all-pervading. Vividhakara, she who has a multitude of forms. Vidya Avidya Swarupini, she who is the form of both knowledge and ignorance. Mahakamesha Nayana Kumudahlada Kaumudi, she who is the moonlight that gladdens the water lilies that are Mahakamesha's eyes. Bhaktaharda Tamobheda Bhanumad Bhanu Santatihi, she who is the sunbeam which dispels the darkness from the heart of her devotees. Shivaduti, she for whom Shiva is the messenger, she who is Shiva's messenger. Shivaradhya, she who is worshipped by Shiva. Shivamurtihi, she whose form is Shiva himself. Shivankari, she who confers prosperity, auspiciousness, happiness. She who turns her devotees into Shiva. Shivapriya, she who is beloved of Shiva. Shivapara, she who is solely devoted to Shiva. Shishteshta, she who is loved by the righteous, she who is the chosen deity of devotees, she who loves righteous people. Shishta Pujita, she who is always worshipped by the righteous. Aprameya, she who is immeasurable by the senses. Swaprakasha, she who is self-luminous. Manovachama Gochara, she who is beyond the range of mind and speech. Chit Shaktihi, she who is the power of consciousness. Chetana Rupa, she who is pure consciousness. Jada Shaktihi, she who is the Maya that has transformed itself as the power of creation. Jadatmika, she who is in the form of the inanimate world. Gayatri, she who is the Gayatri mantra. Vyahrutihi, she who is in the nature of utterance, she who presides over the power of speech. Sandhya, she who is in the form of twilight. Dvijabrinda Nishevita, she who is worshipped by the twice born. Tattvasana, she who has tattvas as her seat, she who abides in tattva. Tat, she who is meant by that, the supreme truth Brahma. Tvam, she who is referred to as thou. Ai, O Mother. Panchakosantara Sthita, she who resides within the 5 sheets. Nihisima Mahima, she whose glory is limitless. Nitya Yavana, she who is ever youthful. Madashalini, she who is shining in a state of inebriation or intoxication. Madagurnita Raktakshi, she whose eyes are reddened, rolling with rapture and inward looking. Madapatala Gandhabuhu, she whose cheeks are rosy with rapture. Chandana Drava Digdhangi, she whose body is smeared with a sandalwood paste. Champeya Kusuma Priya, she who is especially fond of champaka flowers. Kushala, she who is skillful. Komalakara, she who is graceful in form. Kurukulla, she who is the Shakti Kurukulla, residing in the Kuruvinda ruby. Kuleshwari, she who is the ruler of Kula, that is, the triad of the knower, the known, and the knowledge. Kula Kundalaya, she who abides in the Kula Kunda, that is, the Bindu at the center of the pericarp in Mooladhara Chakra. Kaula Marga Tatpara Sevita, she who is worshipped by those devoted to the Kaula tradition. Kumara Gananathamba, She who is the mother of Kumara, that is Subramanya, and Gananatha, that is Ganapati. Tushtihi, she who is ever content. Pushtihi, she who is the power of nourishment. Matihi, she who manifests as intelligence. Dhritihi, she who is fortitude. Shantihi, she who is tranquility itself. Swastimatihi, she who is the ultimate truth. Kantihi, she who is effulgence. Nandini, she who gives delight. Vignanashini, she who destroys all obstacles. Tejovati, she who is effulgent. Trinayana, she who has the sun, moon, and fire as her three eyes. Lolakshi Kamarupini, she whose eyes are expressing in the form of love in women. Malini, she who is wearing garlands. Hansini, she who is not separate from Hamsas, that is, the Yoginis who have reached great spiritual heights. Mata, mother of the universe. Malayachala Vasini, she who resides in the Malaya mountain. Sumukhi, she who has a beautiful face. Nalini, she whose body is soft and beautiful like lotus petals. Subruhu, she who has beautiful eyebrows. Shobhana, she who is always radiant. Suranaika, she who is the leader of the gods. Kalakanthi, she who is the wife of Shiva. Kantimati, she who is radiant. Kshobhini, she who creates upheaval in the mind. Sukshma Rupini, she who has a form that is too subtle to be perceived by the sense organs. Vajreshwari, she who is Vajreshwari, the sixth daily deity. Vamadevi, she who is the wife of Vamadeva, that is Shiva. Vayovastha Vivarjita, she who is exempt from changes due to age, time. Siddheshwari, she who is the goddess worshipped by spiritual adepts. Siddha Vidya, she who is in the form of Siddha Vidya, the 15-syllabled mantra. Siddha Mata, she who is the mother of Siddhas. Yashaswini, she who is of unequaled renown. Vishuddhi Chakra Nilaya, she who resides in the Vishuddhi Chakra. Arakta Varna, she who is of slightly red rosy complexion. Trilochana, she who has three eyes. Khatvangadi Praharana, she who is armed with a club and other weapons. Vadanaika Samanvita, she who possesses only one face. Payasanna Priya, she who is especially fond of sweet rice. Tvakstha, she who is the deity of the organ of touch, that is skin. Pashuloka Bhayankari, she who fills with fear the mortal beings bound by worldly existence. Amritadi Mahashakti Samvrita, she who is surrounded by Amrita and other Shakti deities. Dakinishwari, she who is the Dakini deity. Anahatabja Nilaya, she who resides in the Anahata lotus in the heart. Shyamabha, she who is black in complexion. Vadanadvaya, she who has two faces. Danshtrojvala, she who has shining tusks. Akshamaladi Dhara, she who is wearing garlands of Rudraksha beads and other things. Rudhira Sanstita, she who presides over the blood in the bodies of living beings. Kala Ratriyadi Shaktyau Ghavrita, she who is surrounded by Kala Ratri and other Shaktis. Snigdhau Dhanapriya, she who is fond of food offerings containing ghee, oil and other substances containing fats. Mahavirendra Varada, she who bestows boons on great warriors. Rakinyamba Swarupini, she who is in the form of the Rakini deity. Manipurabja Nilaya, she who resides in the 10-petal lotus in the Manipur chakra. Vadanatraya Sanyuta, she who has 3 faces. Vajradhikayudhopeta, she who holds the Vajra, lightning bolt and other weapons. Damaryadi Bhiravruta, she who is surrounded by Damri and other attending deities. Raktavarna, she who is red in complexion. Mansa Nishtha, she who presides over the flesh in living beings. Gudanna Prita Manasa, she who is fond of sweet rice made with raw sugar. Samasta Bhakta Sukhada, she who confers happiness on all her devotees. Lakinyamba Swarupini, she who is in the form of the Lakini Yogini. Swadhishthanambu Jagata, she who resides in the 6-petaled lotus in the Swadhisthana, Kakini Yogini. Chaturvaktra Manohara, she who has 4 beautiful faces. Shuladhyayudha Sampanna, she who possesses the trident and other weapons, that is noose, skull and abhaya. Pita Varna, she who is yellow in color. Ati Garvita, she who is very proud. Medo Nishtha, she who resides in the fat in living beings. Madhuprita, she who is fond of honey and other offerings made with honey. Bandinyadi Samanvita, she who is accompanied by Bandhini and other Shaktis. Dhadyannasakta Hridaya, she who is particularly fond of offerings made with curd. Kakini Rupa Dharini, she who is in the form of Kakini Yogini. Mooladharam Bhujarudha, she who is resident in the lotus in the Mooladhara. Panchavaktra, she who has 5 faces. Asthi Sanstita, she who resides in the bones. Ankushadi Praharana, she who holds the goad and other weapons. Varadadi Nishevita, she who is attended by Varada and other Shaktis. Mudgaudanasakta Chitta. She who is particularly fond of food offerings made of mugda, a lentil. Sakinyamba Swarupini. She who is in the form of Sakini Yogini. Agnya Chakrabja Nilaya. She who resides in the two-petaled lotus in the Agnya Chakra. Shukla Varna. She who is white in color. Shadanana. She who has 6 faces. Majja Sanstha. She who is the presiding deity of the bone marrow. Hamsavati Mukhya Shakti Samanvita. She who is accompanied by the Shaktis Hamsavati and Shamavati in the 2 petals of the lotus. Haridra Rasika. She who is fond of food seasoned with turmeric. Hakini Rupadharini. She who is in the form of Hakini Devi. Sahasradala Padmastha. She who resides in the 1000-petaled lotus. Sarva Varnopa Shobhita. She who is radiant in many colors. Sarvayudha Dhara. She who holds all the known weapons. Shukla Sansthita. She who resides in the semen. Sarvato Mukhi. She who has faces turned in all directions. Sarvaudana Prita Chitta. She who is pleased by all offerings of food. Yakinyamba Swarupini. She who is in the form of Yakini Yogini. Swaha. She who is the object of the invocation Swaha at the end of mantras while offering oblations to the fire in Yagya ceremonies. Swadha. She who is the object of the Swadha invocation at the end of mantras. Amatihi. She who is in the form of ignorance or nescience. Medha. She who is in the form of wisdom, knowledge. Shruti. She who is in the form of the Vedas. Smritihi. She who is in the form of Smriti, that is, works based on the meaning of Vedas. Anuttama. She who is the best, she who is not excelled by anyone. Punyakirti. She whose fame is sacred or righteous. Punyalabhya. She who is attained only by righteous souls. Punya Shravana Kirtana. She who bestows merit on anyone who hears of her and praises her. Pulomajarchita. She who is worshipped by Pulomaja, Indra's wife. Bandha Mochani. She who is free from bonds. She who gives release from bondage. Barbaralaka. She who has wavy locks of hair. Vimarsha Rupini. She who is in the form of Vimarsha, reflection or meaning. Vidya. She who is in the form of knowledge. Vyadadi Jagat Prasuhu. She who is the mother of the universe, which is the aggregate of all the elements starting with the ether. Sarva Vyadhi Prashamani. She who removes all diseases and sorrows. Sarva Mrityu Nivarini. She who guards her devotees from all kinds of death. Agraganya. She who is to be considered the foremost. Achintya Rupa, she who is of a form beyond the reach of thought. Kali Kalmasha Nashini, she who is the destroyer of the sins of the age of Kali. Katyayini, she who is the daughter of the sage named Kata. Kalahantri, she who is the destroyer of time, death. Kamalaksha Nishevita, she in whom Vishnu takes refuge. Tambula Purita Mukhi, she whose mouth is full from chewing betel. Dadimi Kusuma Prabha, she who shines like a pomegranate flower. Mrigakshi, she whose eyes are long and beautiful like those of a doe. Mohini, she who is enchanting. Mukhya, she who is the first. Mridani, she who is the wife of Mrida, that is Shiva. Mitra Rupini, she who is the friend of everyone, universe. Nitya Trupta, she who is eternally contented. Bhakta Nidhi, she who is the treasure of the devotees. Niyantri, she who controls and guides all beings on the right path. Nikhileshwari, she who is the ruler of all. 578th name. Maitriyadi Vasana Labhya, she who is to be attained by love and other good dispositions. Mahapralaya Sakshini, she who is witness to the great dissolution. Parashakti, she who is original, supreme power. Paranishtha, she who is the supreme end, the supreme abundance. Prajnana Ghana Rupini, she who is pure, condensed knowledge. Madhvi Panalasa, she who is languid from drinking ambrosia or honey. Matta, she who is intoxicated. Matrika Varna Rupini, she who is in the form of the letters of the alphabet. Maha Kailasa Nilaya, she who resides in the great Kailash. Brunala Mrududorlata, she whose arms are as soft and cool as the lotus stem. Mahaniya, she who is adorable. Daya Murtihi, she who is the personification of compassion. Mahasamrajya Shalini, she who controls the great empire of the three worlds. Atma Vidya, she who is the knowledge of the self. Mahavidya, she who is the seat of exalted knowledge, the knowledge of the self. Shri Vidya, she who is the sacred knowledge, that is Panchadashi Mantra. Kama Sevita, she who is worshipped by Kama Devata. Shri Shodashakshari Vidya, she who is in the form of the 16-syllabled mantra. Trikuta, she who is in the three parts of Panchadashi mantra. Kama Kotika, she of whom Kama, that is Shiva, is a part or an approximate form. Kataksha Kinkari Bhuta Kamala Koti Sevita, she who is attended by millions of Lakshmis who are subdued by her mere glances. Shirastita, she who resides in the head. Chandranibha, she who is resplendent like the moon. Bhalastha, she who resides in the forehead between the eyebrows. Indradanu Prabha, she who is resplendent like the rainbow. Hridayastha, she who resides in the heart. Ravi Prakhya, she who shines with the special brilliance of the sun. Trikonantara Deepika, she who shines as a light within the triangle. Dakshayani, she who is Sati Devi, the daughter of Daksha Prajapati. Daityahantri, she who is the killer of demons. Daksha Yagnya Vinashini, she who is the destroyer of the sacrifice conducted by Daksha. Dharandolita Dirghakshi, she who has long, tremulous eyes. Darahasojwalan Mukhi, she whose face is radiant with a smile. Gurumurtihi, she who has assumed a severe form or one who has assumed the form of the Guru. Gunanidhihi, she who is the treasure house of all good qualities. Gomata, she who became Surabhi, the cow that grants all wishes. Guha Janma Buhu, she who is the mother of Guha, that is Subramanya. Deveshi, she who is the protector of the gods. Dandanitistha, she who maintains the rules of justice without the slightest error. Daharakasha Rupini, she who is the subtle self in the heart. Pratipanmukhya Rakanta Tithi Mandala Pujita, she who is worshipped daily starting with Pratipad, that is, first day of the lunar half moon and ending with the full moon. Kalatmika, she who is in the form of the Kalas. Kalanatha, she who is the mistress of all the Kalas. Kavyalapa Vinodini, she who delights in hearing poetry. Sachamara Ramavani Savya Dakshina Sevita, she who is attended by Lakshmi on the left side and Saraswati on the right side bearing ceremonial fans. Adi Shakti, she who is the primordial power, the Parashakti who is the cause of the universe. Ameya, she who is not measurable by any means. Atma, she who is the self in all. Parama, she who is the supreme. Pavanakruti, she who is of sacred form. Aneka Koti Brahmanda Janani, she who is the creator of many crores of worlds. Divya Vigraha, she who has a divine body. Kleemkari, she who is the creator of the syllable Kleem. Kevala, she who is the absolute, as she is complete, independent and without any attributes. Guhya, she who is to be known in secret. Kaivalya Padadaini, she who bestows liberation. Tripura, she who is older than the three, that is, Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. Trijagad Vandya, she who is adored by the inhabitants of all three worlds. Trimurtihi, she who is the aggregate of the Trinity, that is Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. Tridasheshwari, she who is the ruler of the gods. Triyakshari, she whose form consists of 3 letters or syllables Om, which is A, U, Ma. Divya Gandhadya, she who is richly endowed with divine fragrance. Sindhura Tilakanshita, she who shines with a vermilion mark on her forehead, she who is decorated with a special paste made of vermilion. Uma, she who is Parvati Devi. Shailendra Tanaya, she who is the daughter of Himavat, the king of the mountains. Gauri, she who has a fair complexion. Gandharva Sevita, she who is served by Gandharvas. Vishwagarbha, she who contains the whole universe in her womb. Swarnagarbha, she who is the cause of the universe. Avarada, she who destroys the unholy. Vagdheshwari, she who presides over speech. Dhyanagamya, she who is to be attained through meditation. Aparichedya, she whose limits cannot be ascertained, that is unlimited. Jnanada, she who gives knowledge of the self. Jnana Vigraha, she who is the embodiment of knowledge itself. Sarva Vedanta Samvedya, she who is known by all of Vedanta. Satyananda Swarupini, she whose form is existence and bliss. Lopa Mudrarchita, she who is worshipped by Lopa Mudra, wife of sage Agastya. Leela Klupta Brahmanda Mandala, she who has created and maintained the universe purely as a sport. Adrishya, she who is not perceived by the sense organs, normal eyes. Drishya Rahita, she who has nothing to see. Vignatri, she who knows the truth of the physical universe. Vedya Varjita, she who has nothing left to know. Yogini, she who is constantly united with Parashiva, she who possesses the power of yoga. Yogada, she who bestows the power of yoga. Yogya, she who deserves yoga of all kinds. Yogananda, she who is the bliss attained through yoga, she who enjoys the bliss of yoga. Yugandhara, she who is the bearer of the yugas. Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti Swarupini, she who is in the form of the powers of will, knowledge and action. Sarvadhara, she who is the support of all. Supratishta, she who is firmly established. Sadasadrupadharini, she who assumes the forms of both being and non-being. Ashtamurtihi, she who has 8 forms. Ajajayatri, she who conquers ignorance. Lokayatra Vidhaini, she who directs the course of the worlds. Ekakini, she who is the lone one. Bhuma Rupa, she who is the aggregate of all existing things. Nirdvaita, she who is without the sense of duality. Dvaita Varjita, she who is beyond duality. Annada, she who is the giver of food to all living beings. Vasudha, she who is the giver of wealth. Vriddha, she who is ancient. Brahmatmaikya Swarupini, she whose nature is the union of Brahma and Atman. Brihati, she who is immense. Brahmani, she who is predominantly sattvic. Brahmi, she who presides over speech. Brahmananda, she who is ever immersed in the bliss of Brahma. Balipriya, she who is especially fond of sacrificial offerings. Bhasha Rupa, she who is in the form of language. Brihatsena, she who has a vast army. Bhava Bhava Vivarjita, she who is beyond being and non-being. Sukharadhya, she who is easily worshipped. Shubhakari, she who does good. Shobhana Sulabha Gatihi, she who is attained through a bright and easy path. Raja Rajeshwari, she who is the ruler of kings and emperors. Rajya Daini, she who gives dominion. Rajya Vallabha, she who protects all the dominions. Rajat Kripa, she who has a compassion that captivates everyone. Rajapitha Niveshita Nijashrita, she who establishes on royal thrones those who take refuge in her. Rajya Lakshmi, she who is the embodiment of the prosperity of the world. Koshanatha, she who is the mistress of the treasury. Chaturanga Baleshwari, she who commands armies of 4 types. Samrajya Daini, she who is the bestower of imperial dominion. Satyasandha, she who is devoted to or maintains truth. Sagara Mekhala, she who is girdled by the oceans. Dikshita, who is under a vow. Daitya Shamani, she who destroys the demons' wicked forces. Sarvaloka Vashankari, she who keeps all the worlds under her control. Sarvardha Datri, she who grants all desires. Savitri, she who is the creative power in the universe. Satchitananda Rupini, Sat is the absolute truth, Chit is the consciousness, Anand is the bliss. These are the 3 components of ultimate. They are therefore her forms. Desha Kala Parichinna, she who is not limited by time and space, she who is not measured by time and space. Sarvaga, she who pervades all the worlds and all living and non-living things. She who is omnipresent. Sarvamohini, she who deludes all. Saraswati, she who is in the form of knowledge. Shastramayi, she who is in the form of the scriptures, she whose limbs are the scriptures. Guhamba, she who is the mother of Guha, that is Subramanya, she who dwells in the cave of the heart. Guhya Rupini, she who has a secret form. Sarvopadhi Vinirmukta, she who is free from all limitations. Sadashiva Pativrata, she who is Sadashiva's devoted wife. Sampradayeshwari, she who is the guardian of sacred traditions. Sadhuhu, she who possesses equanimity. I, she who is the symbol I. Guru Mandala Rupini, she who embodies in herself the lineage of Gurus. Kulotirna, she who transcends the senses. Bhagaradhya, she who is worshipped in the sun's disk. Maya, she who is illusion. Madhumati, she whose nature is as sweet as honey. Mahi, she who is the goddess earth. Ganamba, she who is the mother of Shiva's attendants. Guhyakaradhya, she who is worshipped by Guhyakas, a kind of devas. Komalangi, she who has beautiful limbs. Gurupriya, she who is beloved of the Gurus. Swatantra, she who is free from all limitations. Sarvatantreshi, she who is the goddess of all tantras. Dakshinamurti Rupini, she who is in the form of Dakshinamurti. Sanakadi Samaradhya, she who is worshipped by Sanaka and other sages. Shivajnana Pradaini, she who bestows the knowledge of Shiva. Chitkala, she who is the consciousness in Brahma. Ananda Kalika, she who is the bud of bliss. Prema Rupa, she who is pure love. Priyankari, she who grants what is dear to her devotees. Nama Parayana Prita, she who is pleased by the repetition of her names. Nandi Vidya, she who is the deity worshipped by the Nandi mantra. Nateshwari, she who is the wife of Natesha, that is Shiva. Midhya Jagadadishthana, she who is the basis of the illusory universe. Muktida, she who gives liberation. Mukti Rupini, she who is in the form of liberation. Lasya Priya, she who is fond of the Lasya dance. Layakari, she who causes absorption. Lajja, she who exists as bashful modesty in all living beings. Rambhadi Vandita, she who is adored by the celestial damsels such as Rambha. Bhavadava Sudhavrushti, she who is the rain of nectar falling on the forest fire of worldly existence. Paparanya Davanala, she who is like wildfire to the forest of sins. Daurbhagya Tulavatula, she who is the gale that drives away the cotton wisps of misfortune. Jaradvanta Raviprabha, she who is the sunlight that dispels the darkness of old age. Bhagyabdi Chandrika, she who is the full moon to the ocean of good fortune. Bhakta Chitta Keki Ghana Ghana, she who is the cloud that gladdens the peacocks who are the hearts of her devotees. Roga Parvata Dambholihi, she who is the thunderbolt that shatters the mountain of disease. Mrityudaru Kutarika, she who is the axe that cuts down the tree of death. Maheshwari, she who is the supreme goddess. Mahakali, she who is the great Kali. Mahagrasa, she who devours everything great. She who is the great devourer. Maharshana, she who eats everything that is great. Aparna, she who owes no debt. Chandika, she who is angry at the wicked. Chandamundasura Nishudhini, she who killed Chanda, Munda and other asuras. Ksharatmika, she who is in the form of both the perishable and imperishable Atma. Sarva Lokeshi, she who is the ruler of all worlds. Vishwadharini, she who supports the universe. Trivarga Datri, she who bestows the three goals of life. Subhaga, she who is the seat of all prosperity. Trayambaka, she who has 3 eyes. Trigunatmika, she who is the essence of the 3 gunas. Swargapa Vargada, she who bestows heaven and liberation. Shuddha, she who is the purest. Japa Pushpa Nibhakritihi, she whose body is like the hibiscus flower. Ojovati, she who is full of vitality. Dhyutidhara, she who is full of light and splendor. She who has an aura of light. Yagya Rupa, she who is in the form of sacrifice. Priyavrata, she who is fond of vows. Duraradhya, she who is difficult to worship. Duradarsha, she who is difficult to control. Patali Kusuma Priya, she who is fond of the patali flower, pale red trumpet flower. Mahati, she who is great, she who is in the form of Mahati. Narada's Veena. Meru Nilaya, she who resides in the Meru mountain. Mandara Kusuma Priya, she who is fond of the Mandara flowers. Veera Radhya, she who is worshipped by heroic persons. Virat Rupa, she who is in the form of the cosmic whole. Viraja, she who is without rajas, that is desire and anger. Vishwatomukhi, she who faces all directions. Pratyagrupa, she who is the indwelling self. Parakasha, she who is the transcendental ether. which is the material cause of the cosmic and individual bodies. Pranada, she who is the giver of life. Pranarupini, she who is the nature of life. Martanda Bhairavaradhya, she who is worshipped by Martanda Bhairava. Mantrini Nyasta Rajyaduhu, she who has entrusted her regal responsibilities to her Mantrini. Tripureshi, she who is the goddess of Tripura. Jayatsena, she who has an army which is accustomed only to victory. Nistre Gunya, she who is devoid of the three gunas. Parapara, she who is both para and apara. Satya Jnanananda Rupa, she who is truth, knowledge and bliss. Samarasya Parayana, she who is immersed in a state of steady wisdom. Kapardini, she who is the wife of Kapardi, that is Shiva, one with matted hair. Kalamala, she who wears all 64 forms of art as a garland. Kamaduk, she who fulfills all desires. Kamarupini, she who has a desirable form. Kalanidhi, she who is the treasure house of all arts. Kavya Kala, she who is the art of poetry. Rasagnya, she who knows all the rasas. Rasa Shevadihi, she who is the treasure house of rasa. Pushta, she who is always full of vigor. Puratana, she who is ancient. Pujya, she who is worthy of worship by all. Pushkara, she who is complete, she who gives nourishment to all. Pushkarekshana, she who has eyes like lotus petals. Paranjyotihi, she who is the supreme light. Parandhama, she who is the supreme abode. Paramanuhu, she who is the subtlest particle. Paratpara, she who is the most supreme of the supreme ones. Pashahasta, she who holds a noose in her hand. Pashahantri, she who destroys the bonds. Paramantra Vibhedini, she who breaks the spell of the evil mantras of the enemy. Murta, she who has forms. Amurta, she who has no definite form. Anitya Tripta, she who is satisfied even by our perishable offerings. Muni Manasa Hansika, she who is the swan in the Manasa lake of the minds of sages. Satyavrata, she who abides firmly in truth. Satyarupa, she who is truth itself. Sarvantaryamini, she who dwells inside all. Sati, she who is reality, the eternal being. Brahmani, she who is the tail that is Brahma, the support for all. Brahma, she who is Brahma. Janani, she who is the mother. Bahurupa, she who has a multitude of forms. Buddharchita, she who is worshipped by the wise. Prasavitri, she who is mother of the universe. Prachanda, she who is full of awe-inspiring wrath. Agnya, she who is divine commandment itself. Pratishtha, she who is the foundation. Prakatakriti, she who is manifested in the form of the universe. Praneshwari, she who lords over the 5 pranas and the senses. Pranadatri, she who is the giver of life. Panchashat Pitha Rupini, she who has 50 centers of worship. Vishrunkhala, she who is unfettered, free in every way. Viviktastha, she who abides in secluded places. Veeramata, she who is the mother of the valiant. Viyat Prasuho, she who is the mother to the ether. Mukunda, she who gives salvation. Mukti Nilaya, she who is the abode of salvation. Moola Vigraha Rupini, she who is the root form of everything. Bhavagnya, she who is the knower of all thoughts and sentiments. Bhavarogagni, she who eradicates the diseases of the cycle of birth and death. Bhavachakra Pravartini, she who turns the wheel of the cycle of birth and death. Chandah Sara, she who is the essence of all the Vedas. Shastra Sara, she who is the essence of all the scriptures. Mantra Sara, she who is the essence of all the mantras. Talodari, she who is slender-waisted. Udara Kirtihi, she who possesses exalted fame. Uddama Vaibhava, she whose prowess is unlimited. Varna Rupini, she who is in the form of the letters of the alphabets. Janma Mrityu Jara Tapta Jana Vishranti Daini, she who gives peace and repose to those who are afflicted by birth, death and decrepitude. Sarvopanishad Udghushta, she who is celebrated by all the Upanishads. Shantyatita Kalatmika, she who transcends the state of peace. Gambhira, she who is unfathomable. 855th name. Gaganantastha, she who resides in the ether space. Garvita, she who is proud. Gana Lolupa, she who delights in music. Kalpana Rahita, she who is free from imaginary attributes. Kashta, she who dwells in the highest state, that is, beyond which there is nothing. Akanta, she who ends all sins and sorrows. Kantardha Vigraha, she who is half the body of her husband. Karya Karana Nirmukta, she who is free from the bond of cause and effect. Kama Keli Tarangita, she who is overflowing with pleasure in the union with Kameshwara. Kanat Kanaka Tatanka, she who wears glittering gold ear ornaments. Leela Vigrahadharini, she who assumes various glorious forms as a sport. Aja, she who has no birth. Kshaya Vinirmukta, she who is free from decay. Mugdha, she who is captivating in her beauty. Kshipra Prasadhini, she who is quickly pleased. Antharmukha Samaradhya, she who is to be worshipped internally. Bahirmukha Sudurlabha, she who is difficult to attain by those whose attention is directed outwards. Trayi, she who is the three Vedas. Trivarga Nilaya, she who is the abode of the threefold aims of human life. Tristha, she who resides in the three worlds. Tripura Malini, she who is the goddess of the Antardashara Chakra of the Shri Chakra. Niramaya, she who is free from diseases of all kinds. Niralamba, she who depends on no one. Swatma Rama, she who rejoices in her own self. Sudhashrutihi, she who is the source of nectar. Sansara Panka Nirmagna Samudharana Pandita, she who is skilled in raising those who are immersed in the mire of transmigratory life. Yagya Priya, she who is fond of sacrifices and other rituals. Yagya Kartri, she who is the doer of sacrificial rites. Yajamana Swarupini, she who is in the form of Yajamana, who directs sacrificial rites. Dharmadhara, Dharma is the code of right conduct handed down by tradition in each age. She is the support of right conduct. Dhanadhyaksha, she who oversees wealth. Dhanadhanya Vivardhini, she who increases wealth and harvest. Viprapriya, she who is fond of the learned. Viprarupa, she who is in the form of a knower of the self. Vishwabhramanakarini, she who makes the universe go around through her power of illusion. Vishwagrasa, she who devours the universe. Vidrumabha, she who shines like coral with her red complexion. Vaishnavi, she who is in the form of Vishnu. Vishnu Rupini, she who is in a form that extends over the whole universe. Ayonihi, she who is without origin. Yoni Nilaya, she who is the seat of all origins. Kutastha, she who remains unchanged like the anvil. Kularupini, she who is the deity of the Kaula path. Veera Goshti Priya, she who is fond of the assembly of warriors. Veera, she who is heroic. Naishkarmya, she who abstains from actions. Nadarupini, she who is in the form of the primal sound. Vijnana Kalana, she who realizes the knowledge of Brahma. Kalya, she who is capable of creation. Vidagdha, she who is expert in everything. Baindavasana, she who is seated in the Baindava chakra, that is, spot between the eyebrows. Tattvadhika, she who transcends all cosmic categories. Tattvamayi, she who is reality itself, she who is Shiva himself. Tattvamartha Swarupini, she who is the meaning of Tat, that is that, and Tvam, that is thou. Samagana Priya, she who is fond of the chanting of the Samaveda. Saumya, she who is benign and gentle in nature, of a cool, gentle nature as the moon. Sadashiva Kutumbini, she who is the wife of Sadashiva. Savyapasavya Margastha, she who occupies or can be reached by both the left and right. Sarvapad Vinirvarini, she who removes all dangers. Swastha, she who abides in herself, she who is free from all afflictions. Swabhava Madhura, she who is sweet in her inherent nature. Dhira, she who is wise, who gives wisdom. Dhira Samarchita, she who is worshipped by the wise and brave, meaning she cannot be worshipped by the cowardly and stupid. Chaitanyarghya Samaradhya, she who is worshipped with consciousness as the oblation. Chaitanya Kusuma Priya, she who is fond of the flower, that is consciousness. Sadodita, she who is ever shining. Sadatushta, she who is ever pleased. Tarunaditya Patala, she who is rosy like the morning sun. Dakshina Dakshinaaradhya, she who is adored by both right and left-handed worshippers. Darasmera Mukhambuja, she whose lotus face holds a sweet smile. Kaulini Kevala, she who is worshipped as pure knowledge, consciousness, by the spiritual aspirants following the Kaula path. Anarghya Kaivalya Padadaini, she who confers the priceless fruit of final liberation. Stotra Priya, she who is fond of hymns in her praise. Stuti Matihi, she who is the true object, the essence of all praises. Shruti Sanstuta Vaibhava, she whose glory is celebrated in the Shrutis. Manaswini, she who is well known for her mind. Manavati, she who is high-minded, she who has great fame. Maheshi, she who is the wife of Mahesha. Mangala Kritihi, she who is of auspicious form. Vishwamata, she who is the mother of the universe. Jagadhatri, she who is the mother who protects and sustains the world. Vishalakshi, she who has large eyes. Viragini, she who is dispassionate. Pragalbha, she who is skillful and confident. Paramodara, she who is supremely generous. Paramoda, she who is supremely joyful. Manomai, she who is in the form of the mind. Vyomakeshi, she who has the sky as her hair. Vimanastha, she who is seated in her celestial chariot, she who journeys in her celestial chariot along with the gods. Vajrini, she who bears the Vajra weapon, that is thunderbolt. Vamakeshwari, she who is the presiding deity of the Vamakeshwara Tantra. Panchayagnapriya, she who is fond of the 5 forms of sacrifices, which are Agnihotra, Darsha Purnamasa, Chaturmasya, Goyagya and Somayagya. Panchapreta Manchadhishayini, she who reclines on a couch made of 5 corpses. Panchami, she who is the 5th after Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra and Ishvara. Panchabhuteshi, she who is the goddess of the 5 elements. Panchasankhyopacharini, she who is worshipped using 5 objects of worship, which are fragrance, flower, incense, lamp and food. Shashwati, she who is eternal. Shashwataishwarya, she who holds eternal sovereignty. Sharmada, she who is the giver of happiness. Shambhu Mohini, she who deludes Shiva. Dhara, she who is Mother Earth. Dharasuta, she who is the daughter of Dhara, that is Himavat. Dhanya, she who possesses great wealth, she who is extremely blessed. Dharmini, she who is righteous. Dharmavardhini, she who promotes righteousness. Lokatita, she who transcends the worlds. Gunatita, she who transcends the gunas. Sarvatita, she who transcends everything. Shamatmika, she who is of the nature of peace and bliss. Bandhuka Kusuma Prakhya, she who resembles the Bandhuka flower in beauty and grace. Bala, she who never forsakes the nature of a child. Leela Vinodini, she who delights in her sport. Sumangali, she who is eternally auspicious, she who never becomes a widow. Sukhakari, she who gives happiness. Suveshadhya, she who is very attractive in her beautiful rich garments and ornaments. Suvasini, she who is ever auspiciously married. Suvasinyarchana Prita, she who is pleased by the worship by married women. Ashobhana, she who is always radiant. Shuddha Manasa, she who is of pure mind, she who purifies the mind of her worshippers. Bindu Tarpana Santushta, she who is pleased by offerings to the Bindu of Shri Chakra. Purvaja, she who is ahead of everyone, firstborn. Tripurambika, she who is the mother of the Tripuras, that is 3 cities. Dashamudra Samaradhya, she who is worshipped by 10 mudras, which are Sarva Sanshobhini, Sarva Vidravini, Sarva Akarshini, Sarva Vashankari, Sarvonmadini, Sarva Mahankusha, Sarva Khechari, Sarva Bija, Sarva Yoni, and Sarva Trikhanda. Tripura Shri Vashankari, she for whom Tripura Shri is under control. Jnana Mudra, she who is in the form of Jnana Mudra. Jnana Gamya, she who is to be attained through the yoga of knowledge. Jnanagneya Swarupini, she who is both knowledge and the known. Yoni Mudra, she who is in the form of the Yoni Mudra. Trikhandeshi, she who is the ruler of the 10th Mudra, the Trikhanda. Triguna, she who is endowed with the 3 gunas of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Amba, she who is the mother of all beings, mother of the universe. Trikonaga, she who resides in the triangle. Anagha, she who is sinless. Adbhuta Charitra, she whose deeds are marvelous. Vanchitartha Pradayini, she who gives all the desired objects. Abhyasatishaya Jnata, she who is known only through the exceedingly strenuous practice of spiritual discipline. Shadadvatita Rupini, she whose form transcends the 6 paths. Avyaja Karunamurtihi, she who is pure compassion. Ajnana Dvanta Deepika, she who is the bright lamp that dispels the darkness of ignorance. Abala Gopa Vidita, she who is well known by all, even by children and cowherds. Sarvanullangya Shasana, she whose commands are not disobeyed by anyone. Shri Chakra Rajanilaya, she who abides in Shri Chakra, the king of chakras. Srimad Tripura Sundari, she who is the divine Tripura Sundari Devi. Shri Shiva, she who is the auspicious and divine Shiva. Shiva Shakti-Aikya Rupini, she who is the union of Shiva and Shakti into one form. Lalitambika, she who is the divine mother Lalita. Shreem, Hreem, Aim, Om. Evam Shri Lalita Devya Nam Sahasrakam Jaguhu Iti Shri Brahmanda Purane Uttarakhande Shri Hayagrivagasthya Samvade Shri Lalita Sahasranama Stotra Kathanam Sampurnam. Sakshat Shri Adi Shakti Mataji Shri Nirmala Devyai Namo Namaha. Srimad Devi Bhagavath. If you want to know who Adi Shakti is, read Devi Bhagavath. read by Her Holiness Shri Mataji Nirmala Devi. Jai Shri Mataji.